The journey is conversations with ordinary people about stories of transformation and how we may have had setbacks in our life and how we persevered through those, how we've learned from those obstacles, and how they've maybe helped us on our path today.
Well, welcome to the journey. My name is Kevin Polkey, and I am the host of the journey. And today, I want to spend some time talking about and reflecting on those times when we find ourselves threatened. And I know I've talked about this before over the last couple of years. I've spent quite a bit of time researching and doing some work on Amelia and Emily Nagoski's work of completing the threat response cycle. Um, in in a whole, their work is around the idea that we were originally designed and created for survival, and that our brain was designed for us to be able to assess if something is a threat. And if we determine and perceive that something is a threat, then our body's activated through the amygdala to go into fight, flight, or freeze. And that has historically been a great thing for humans to be able to utilize to survival when there is a physical threat. Um, back, hundreds of years ago, if it was an animal or someone outside of your tribe, an enemy, that being alert of that threat would then activate the amygdala to send adrenaline to your to throughout your body to increase blood flow, increase flexibility. That adrenaline allowed you to be able to run away, to be more flexible, to have the power to to fight that whatever that threat was. Um, in 2025, what we most of the time in most circumstances, obviously there's exceptions when things happen, when there's some type of physical threat, such as a fire or a flood or something that may happen with another person. But in most cases, our threats today are more mental, emotional, psychological threats. The downside is that our as we perceive something as a threat, even if it is just psychological, our amygdala responds the same way, and our body then responds the same way as it did if it was a physical threat into that fight, flight, or freeze. Usually, though, we recognize that it would be inappropriate, even though we're perceiving this as a threat, for us to respond in a physical way of either avoidance or running away or some type of physical altercation. So then what usually happens is that we just suppress those thoughts and memories. If we don't intentionally do something to complete that threat response cycle, we just store um, that energy, that all those chemicals that are produced from the amygdala, and it interferes with sleep. It causes inflammation. It has this feeling of being on edge. That has then at times been construed or seen as maybe the underpinnings of of anxiety. Now, sometimes anxiety can happen as a genetic disposition, as we know, and we refer to that as generalized anxiety disorder, as a mental illness. Other times it may come as some type of traumatic event, or it may, as we're finding out, that through lifestyle of suppressing those experiences and not burning off those chemicals, that we become uh, experience adrenal overload, that we're constantly or throughout the day in this state of fight or flight. even when there is minimal trigger. Like many times, uh, avoidance of feeling anxious or what we feel threatened by is actually going to feed that. It actually allows it to grow. Similar to when we hear oncologists talk about that if someone's diagnosed with cancer, how they need to change their diet because the cancer will feed off of refined sugars. Similar anxiety, regardless if it's anxiety that is diagnosed or worry, is going to feed off of avoidance. Initially, it's going to feel like something that is going to make the momentary situation better, but in the long run, what it ends up being, it just ends up being compounded. It waits there and then grows. So, what can we do? I think with depending on the severity and the and longevity of this, may need to um, seek out professional help or seek out from a counseling standpoint to be able to assess the severity or the degree of it based upon that. Uh, like I said, it could be from an origins of a chemical imbalance or from a trauma, and there we will need to do some different things to look at that. But from an aspect of just everyday circumstances, if I'm dreading my financial situation and then I'm avoiding balancing my checkbook, looking at my accounts, not only does it not go away, but that fear continues to grow. So turning and facing that fear. If I have anxiety and worry and concern regarding something in public, um, being judged that I won't be able to do something correctly, to improve on that, to practice, um, practice that skill will help lower that. And by facing that instead of avoiding it is a way of reducing that fear as well. That doesn't mean that we're not going to be activated when we go and do those things. That may never go away, but the more that we practice something, the easier it'll be able to get to address that. The more that we avoid it, the bigger it appears the dragon becomes. And as we've talked before, the idea that um, when it comes to certain mental as well as physical sensations with something, a fear of not being able, a fear of sinking when in the water, and instead facing that and taking proper swim lessons so that there isn't that same fear that happens. That if you do become anxious in the water, to reduce that panic is to then breathe and remember what you've been taught. Or if there's a fear of heights, how to put yourself in a position where you begin practicing with safety, indoor rock climbing. These are just some examples of what we can do to face those dragons in our life, and instead of allowing them to get bigger through avoidance, that we can work with someone to create a plan and slowly start developing those skills of facing those dragons and not letting them get bigger and consuming us by avoidance. If there is by any chance someone that could benefit from this particular talk on facing your dragons, please share that with them. We never know what someone may be going through and what might be beneficial, some little story or some thought. As always, thank you for being here and look forward to being with you next week.